All right,
Make that advancement.
I left my hat in the car.
we have, there's a hat over there. There's a hat right there.
Yeah. You can hand me. What's your phone?
Yeah, here's a hat right here, too.
Where the fedora? Oh,
Yeah.
thanks.
All right, we'll say our prayers here and get to rocking. This is Innerspace Class 15, so we're gonna. But as always, whatever I'm kind of going over during the week, I'm going to interject a little bit of it. And another thing we're going to do in this class today is because we're doing Innerspace, right after the chapter on page 74, which is the chapter on Malchut, it goes right into the shattering of the vessels. And what I have figured out is this book is written backwards. What it should have done was start with the names of God and Ab Sagman Ben, and then went to Akadim, and then went to Nekadim, and then went to Beradim, and then went to Partsufim, and then went to the Sphirot, and ended in Malchut, but it doesn't.
I remember Sutton talked exactly about that. That was done on purpose. Now, what I can't remember is the reasoning for it. But he said this was. I remember him talking about the Kaplan, the genius of Kaplan, that he formulated this book that direction. But he did have a distinct purpose for it.
Ah, I got you. Hello, Teresa. All right. Today we get to study Torah for the sake of heaven, for the sake of Israel and all Jerusalem. We would have to give the merit of our study and the merit of our Torah to Stephen King, Abraham Ben Moshe Gilla, Ed Stribling, Linda Flora, Carl Lucerio, Brendan Ross, Raymond Rosentrader, Brooke Gibson, Paul Navarez, Garrett Matledge, Jordan Matledge, The Patients of Texas Oncology, Rita Wilson, H.L. and Betty Munkuski, Lola, daughter of Justin Lakeisha Neal, Berea One Staff, Felice Hagar, Nadine Freeman, Logan Willis, Billy Holt, Charles David, Rosa Honda, Christopher Durka, Noel Cardoza, David Douglas, Vicky McLean, Savannah, daughter of Matthew and Misty Katz, Tom and Karen Maitland, Sandra Hayes, Carol Tinkle, Larry Langberg, Jill Navarez, Blake Highland, Leela Briscoe, Sam Peak, Yehuda Hay, Ben Matai, Leah, James London, David Jenkins, Jake Suarez, Bobby Williams Sr., Sally Talamontes, the Rogers family, Daniel Washington, Carol Scott, Rabbi Richmond, Maurice Greenwood, Gracie Bill Linder, Brandy Boots, Amanda Elliott, Frank Pollard, Carol's family, Baby Denard, Michelle Magnuson, Jenna Marie, Kimberly Brown, David January, Kim Lively, Crespin Rodriguez, Sandra Hurth, Virgil Williams, Brad Mace, Josh Oliver Nickerson, Jerry Matledge, Dylan Tinkle, Amber Merchant, Simca Ben Abraham and family, Celinda Sheffields, Luis Gutierrez and family, Aaron Price, Gail McWhorter, Sonia Kinzer, Kathy Johns, John Michael Christopher Ramus, Jean Senajak Coates, Nellie Warlick, Tahila Abuelo, Miranda Rosas, Jim Barfield, Naomi Batsimka, Terry King, Ronald Whitlow, Kathleen Graham Walsh, Brandon's family, Mila Rose, Monica Johnson, Ed and Dottie Garrison, Moshe Saloveychek, Donna Marie, Farrar Sajid, Benson Ewing, Darlene Youts, Debbie Henson, Anita Jones, Jessica Ross, Doug Eldridge, Bryant Welch, Phoebe Bridges, Salvador Gutierrez and family, Jacob Ben Simca, Max Wagner, son of Marcy Wagner, Mark Matledge, Emily Battova, Jackie Cupneen, Miriam, Carla Manzanares, Beth Carmen, Alton Tillman, and Elvia Rosas. All right. Boom. All right. Innerspace 14. Ruler of the universe. Master of all masters. Father of mercy and forgiveness. Or 15, rather. We thank you, our God and the God of our fathers, by bowing down and kneeling, that you brought us closer to your Torah and your holy work, and that you enable us to take part in the secrets of your holy Torah. How worthy are we that you grant us with such a big favor? That is the reason we plead before you, that you will forgive and acquit all of our sins, and they should not bring separation between you and us. May it be your will before you, our God and the God of our fathers, that you will awaken and prepare our hearts to love and revere you. May you listen to our utterances and open our closed heart to the hidden studies of your Torah. And may our study be pleasant before your place of honor as aroma of sweet incense. And may you emanate to us light from the source of our soul to all of our being. And may the sparks of your holy servants, through which you revealed your wisdom to the world, shine. And may their merit and the merit of their fathers and merit of their Torah and holiness support us, so we shall not stumble through our study. And by their merit enlighten our eyes in our learning, as stated by King David, the sweet singer of Israel. Open my eyes so that I will see the wonders from your Torah. because from his mouth God gives wisdom and understanding. May the utterance of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart find favor before you, God, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. Okay,
Y'all come on in.
come on in.
What's that?
If we need some more chairs, we'll grab them. Do we need some more chairs? Here's one right here. You can take that right in there. All right. Okay. Welcome everybody. Today we are on. If you're following along in your book, we're on page 74, an Innerface with Malchut. Now, Malchut is the very bottom sphere. We have gone through every one of them, and it's the very bottom one. Now, it's the one that God's worried about the most. All right? So, whenever you're reading through the Torah is a book of code. And it's always trying to work on that piece of code. So what are some of the names that are used in Torah instead of Malchut?
Kingdom.
Kingdom? Anybody? Huh? Vessel? What else? How about daughter?
That's right.
How about house?
Shekhinah.
Shekhinah?
Okay.
How about land? How about earth? How about a bed? How about an altar? Okay? Anytime you hear and it says, and God said to build an altar, what is he saying? Make a Malchut. How about the biggest Malchut in the world? How about an ark? So whenever God says build an ark is always Malchut. Noah built an ark. That is the Malchut. Moses had Betzael made an ark. Ark is the Malchut. So anytime he's talking about the land, the world, a house, a daughter, a vessel, a queen, a kingdom, an ark, an altar, every one of those words in Torah refers to Malchut. It's always referring to that very thing. Okay? And the righteous man that does all this is called the tzaddik. Tzaddik means the righteous. And righteous is always referring to the Sefirot of Yesod. That always does whatever it has to do to make the Malchut. Now, these are, we don't really talk about those because those are the 7 lower Sefirot, which is 7 days of the week. And we get down here to 6, 7. So, what is the main Malchut in the world? Shabbat. So, Shabbat is a Malchut. All right? Now, what is, if we say the sun and the moon? The moon is Malchut. The sun is Yesod, and it gives light to the moon. That's the tzaddik. All right?
So it's the ultimate receiver.
It's the ultimate receiver. The woman, the womb, the vessel, the ark. Put the animals in the ark. Put the commandments in the ark. Put the animal sacrifice on the ark. On the altar. Altar. You know? Put the Holy of Holies in the house. It's in the house. You know, everything. So that it's the ultimate receiver, because what we've been studying is how is God going to emanate his light and get it all the way down to the Malchut, where the Malchut can receive it. All right? And so as soon as this chapter's over, it goes straight into the shattering of the vessels. All right? Now, I'm going to go there just a little bit because we have to. Now, the vessel is a Malchut. So like you said a while ago. So what happens is all the vessels are shattering. And what he's shattering is called death. Everything dies. It's shattering. Because it cannot contain God's light. It cannot hold it. So he's trying to make the filter system strong enough that everything he puts in it, it can receive it. And as soon as the vessel figures out, it can contain it and it can receive it, it must give it. It must give back. So man into woman, woman gives forth a complete child.
But it's more.
But it's more than it ever received.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is what God is trying. This is all of humanity. He's trying to create he's trying to make a person be able to receive everything he can impart to him, and the thing that man gives back is more than he ever received. And this is called tzedakah or charity or anything like that, you know. And how does it come out in the Torah? So if the 6 is the written Torah, what do you think the 7th is?
The oral.
The 7th Malchut is the oral Torah. Without the oral Torah, to receive the written Torah, then once the oral Torah receives the written Torah, then what comes out of the oral Torah is so much more than the written Torah. You see how it works?
Yeah.
You have one book that's a written Torah. Just the Zohar alone up here is 23 volumes. There's 73 volumes of Talmud. So you see how it multiplies the little thing that it's been given. My poor wife, she has to, on top of our chest of drawers, there's just solid Talmud stacked to the deal. You know? Now, where we're headed is to the shattering of the vessels. Okay? The shattering of the vessels is found in Genesis 36. They call the kings of Edom. Why would they call them the kings of Edom if the vessel shattered? Because a king has to rule a kingdom. And kingdom is Malchut. And we know that's the female. So when it couldn't contain the light and it shattered, and this guy ruled and reigned and married so-and-so, and they died. And that's how the Torah teaches it in Genesis 36. These are the kings of Edom. Genesis 36 happens before Genesis 1 if you read it on what's called the Peshat level. On the Sod level, we know Genesis 1 is talking from Adam Kadmon before the Adam of the garden anyway. And here's how. If we look at let me look at this right quick. Because it's fixing to bring in we're fixing to have to talk about the shattering of the vessel. So I'll go ahead and get into that because we're headed that way. Okay. If you look on my chart here, this piece of chart right here is Genesis, Adam and Eve in the garden. Now there were 974 Genesis before this Genesis. And we're going to call them creations. And this is the world that's right here on this board. This is called the world of Nekudim. And this is called the world of Akudim, where everything's together. This is where everything shatters. And this is where everything comes back together. We're going to call that the world of the Partsufim, where it comes back in parts. All right? So it was all unified, then it was all fractured, and then it all comes together to create a new form.
Right.
All right? Now, in the world of Nekudim, this is the world of points. Akudim is bound, and Beredim is banded. And we're going to get into today, this is when Jacob went to Laban's house, he was working with the sheep, the spotted sheep, the banded sheep, and the solid sheep.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is Torah code for he's working in the world of Nekudim, but they tell it through the story of sheep. Has nothing to do with sheep. You see, so he is going back and he's working on the shattered vessels. He's working on all of the worlds that God ever created before he got to this one. Dinosaurs, yada, yada, yada. Everything that come and gone, 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 come and gone. All right? Because at the resurrection, it's all going to come back. Now, we know that Malchut is called a day. In all the prophecy, it talks about at the end of days. So this was the first day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, sixth day when Adam was made. Adam is the man, the tzaddik. Seventh day, he rested. This is called the end of days. So anytime you read in Daniel or any of the prophecies, in the end of days, he's talking about Malchut. He's not counting so many. He's talking about at this spot. And this is the Sphirot. You see the D right here? See, this was Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Aaron, Moses, Joseph or Yosef. And this one's got a D in it. King David. King David's Mashiach. Although it's feminine, it's masculine. So why was David the ultimate receiver and the ultimate giver? David received everything God had for him. David would stay up all night and write psalms and then sing the rest of the night, or study Torah and sing the rest of the night. He never did not receive. But what was his ultimate gift? Why was he the ultimate giver? He gave his son the entire kingdom and the first temple. The ultimate giver. You see? So
that's when you reach infinity with God, because he is the ultimate giver. He can't do anything but give. And when you reach that point like David did, and you are the ultimate giver, then you've reached affinity with God.
Yeah, and he gave his son the ultimate gift, which bound heaven and earth together. All right? So that's a little bit about Malchut. Now, in the shattering of the vessels, as you know, as we've studied in here, there's always three columns, right, left, center, like Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Always goes back to that. Now, when we have three columns, everything shattered at the eye, all right, in the world of Nekudim. So, what happens is this. When it shatters right here, and all these, we're going to call them sparks, fell out. They're called nitzo, is in Hebrew. They manifest into three different columns. One is called the pardinim, is where we get the word paraduma, or the red heifer. The red heifer atones for that. Okay? But this was Timnah, the female Timnah in the Torah. Okay? Now, the shak dinim, or it can be shakah, which is a feminine word, 320 or 325. This is the Cushite woman that Moses married. And the Rapak, the 288 sparks, this was Potiphar's wife. So when these guys are working on the world of Nekudim, the shattering of the vessels of the 974 generations of creation, they're working with these women. These women represent that coordinate. Okay? So in Genesis 1, God said, "Let there be light." That's the Og Sagmon bin, and there was light. That's the Rachel. Now it says that the earth and divine presence hovered. The word there, Rapak. There's your 288. So in the second sentence of Genesis is Rapak, Shach, and Par. That's where they get it from. All right. This is the shattering of the vessels. Now, we're going to have to actually get a building.
Yeah.
Hey, Jordan, turn the air down for us in here. So, the reason I wanted to say that is this. We're having Passover coming up. Okay? Now, we studied last week about Jethro and the mateh, the staff. The mateh is Hebrew for the staff. And Memtet is Metatron. Okay? Which is the activating angel that does everything. Now, we see in Torah, we see a thing called iteration. Everything just keeps happening over and over and over again. So we see the splitting of the sea, right? This is the whole Passover coming out. Now, if we look in 2 Kings, right now I'm studying the translation of Elijah. And some of the questions I have was, why did God take him? I mean, that's a pretty good basic question. Why did God take him? The answer to that is Elijah wasn't for here and he couldn't stay any longer. He had to go. All right, that's basically the answer. All right, so there were 3 people that did not die. Enoch, Moses, basically, and Elijah. Enoch we know is a Catriel or Sandalphon, or a Catriel, and we know Elijah is Sandalphon. Now, Moses is in the middle, the Mem, the Metatron. He's in the middle, okay? So listen to what this says. It says, and as they were walking and conversing, behold, a chariot of fire and horses, and fire appeared and separated between the 2 of them. What is that? That's separation between 3D and 4D, okay? Elijah ascended to heaven in a whirlwind, and Elisha was watching and shouting, Abba, Abba, Father, Father, Israel, chariots and horsemen. And he saw him no more. And he took hold of his garments and he rent it in 2 pieces. He picked up Elijah's mantle, which had fallen from him, and he returned and stood at the bank of the Jordan. And he took the mantle which he had fallen from him, and he struck the water and said, Where is Hashem, the God of Elijah? He too struck the water, and it split apart this way and that. You see the Red Sea with the staff, and now with the mantle of Elijah, Elisha does this very same thing to the Jordan River. Splits it apart. Why does that happen? Because mantle is the word aderet in Hebrew. Aderet is, if you take the par and the shach and you add them together, it's the word aderet. So what is he? What is his double mantle? He's working in the world of Nekudim once again. All right. Now, Ravali says that the mantle and the staff of Moses are the same thing. One's just a staff and one's just a mantle. All right. So, one of the questions that I hadn't ever had answered was, okay, Enoch is such a character, but really all it says is, and God took him, right? But Elijah, look at how much is expounded on, because he's the Malchut. One's the Ketcher, one's the Malchut. And it's just expounded. But where, and God took him, but where'd these guys come from? What's their origin? Why was it those 2 that left? Why wasn't it about 25 guys that were worthy of that same deal? Because it's called Zahara Ila'ah in Hebrew. What is that? We studied the souls. And if you look up here at the very top, somewhere maybe, do I even have them on there?
I don't know if you've got this.
Maybe not. All right. If we haven't gone through, let's go through. The top soul is called I don't even know if I got them anywhere. It don't matter. The top soul is called the Yahida. And then underneath that, everybody has five levels of the soul. And then you have what's called the Haya, and then the Neshama, and then the Ruach, and then the Nefesh. Okay? When Adam fell, the Haya and the Yahida fell out, basically. And so that's why everybody says, well, as high as you can get is Neshama. Because the Zahara Ila'ah is the Haya and the Yahida of Adam that fell. And who are these two? Who is it? The Yahida is Enoch, and the Haya is Elijah.
Wow.
These are the two soul parts of Adam that fell out, called the Zahara Ila'ah. That's why they were taken, because that level of soul is so high, nobody ever reaches that. The only other person that reached the height of Yahida, Russell, is
Moshe.
That's right. That's why Moses, did he die? Did he die?
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
You see that's why that's in there. Did he die? Did he not die? All right, because he actually got that high. For us in our day, if we can get to Ruach, we are really doing something good.
Yeah.
All right. So I wanted to show, since we were going to work in the world of Nekudim coming up in this book, where it is in the Torah, in the mantle of Elijah, that he's working there. Of course, the book here goes into Jacob with Laban and the sheep. All right, and Jacob is Adam, and who is Laban? The Nakash, the serpent, the evil one. And so what's he doing? He's going back in, fixing all the stuff that got broken. All right. Now, if you will, on page 74, I'm not going to sit there and read about the traffic controller, but what we're going to see is go down to the almost the last paragraph where it says we can see, and go to the third sentence. We have seen that these 6 Sphirot are associated with the Vav of the Tetragrammaton. Now, so I'm just going to take this off there for right now. So, if we have God's name, Yud Hey Vav Hey, it may be better if I point up here. But I don't have the tip of the Yud up there. I've probably wiped it off by now. We'll put it. Yeah, it was right there. I saw where it was. Right there. Boop. Right there. Now, if we look up here, Yud Hey Vav Hey, Hashem, the name. Here's the Yud. Here's the tip of the Yud. Here's a Hey. And here's the Vav. And here's the Hey. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. So when it's talking about the Vav, it's talking about these 6. You put a Vav in something, it makes it male. Okay? Hey is female. This would be Rachel. The upper female is Leah. So, right here in the text, we've seen that these 6 Sphirot are the Vav of the Tetragrammaton. The Vav is the idea of forming a connection and giving. In essence, the first triad represents the initial reaching out to give, and the giving, however, is too powerful to receive. So it goes lower to a lower filter system. It is only the second triad that's the concept of giving brought into perfection as it needs to be to the receiver, which is through Yesod. Altogether, then, we have the 6 elements of the idea of giving. These are the 6 days of creation. God was creating to give. All right? We now bring in the last hay of the Tetragrammaton, which is the Malchut, or the kingship. We have the idea of now receiving. It is the idea of being the Keli, or the vessel. Malchut is the power that God gives us to receive from Him. Furthermore, it is in this Malchut that the purpose of giving is realized in a relationship where one receives can also reciprocate and become a giver. And I gave y'all some examples of that. It is for this reason that Malchut is seen as a feminine Sephirah. On one hand, it's the ultimate vessel that was created to hold God's light. It represents the epitome of receiving and therefore is characterized as a Sephirah that has nothing of his own. Where does God show us that in natural world? The moon. All of the feast of God go by the moon. All right? So the moon is dark. It has nothing of its own. Only when the sun shines the light on the moon, does the moon have anything. All right? And so all of the feast go by the moon. Every animal in creation cycles on the moon phase. Every animal. You can breed horses, cows, deer, it doesn't matter. It's going to happen on a moon phase because all of creation is run by that. The tides are run by that. Migrations of birds, geese, sandhill cranes, it doesn't matter. It all runs off the moon. All right? Circumcisions, blood. You bleed differently on a full moon than you do on a new moon. Everything in this world is actually governed by the moon, not the sun. Because it is the sun that gives to the moon. And then the moon gives back. All right? So, go to the ER on a full moon and see what happens. It's busy, 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 busy. Okay? Now, so this is what it's talking about. It has nothing of its own. So everything, God has been trying to put love and strength and empathy and balance and all these things to get everything to where he could give it. Because if it just went straight through, like it had to start out, it would explode. We call that the Big Bang Theory. All right? Science and Torah line up. And that was 18 billion years ago, about 974 generations. You can calculate it, it's the same number. All right? So, after 974 generations, we get to the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, which is the whole Passover deal. So, from Adam to Abraham, to Noah, to Abraham, from Adam to Noah, 10 generations. One part Suf. From Noah to Moses, 10 generations. To Abraham, 10 generations. From Abraham to Moses, 6 generations. 26. What do we know about 26? Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey equals 26. So, 974 plus 26 equals 1,000. 1 and 1,000. 1, 10, hundreds, thousands. So when you're reading in Torah and these people were living 900 years old or 930 years old like Adam did, where's Adam at? He's up here. He's in a world so high that the numbers and the ages tell you where they are. And Noah was 600 years old when he entered the ark. He's in the world of Berea, you know. And those that lived in the hundreds, they're in the world of Yetzirah. And those that lived in the world of the ones and the 70, 60, 50, 40, they're in the world of Asiya. So you can pretty much tell. So if God's working in the level of Atzilut, in the world of 1,000s, we have a day is 1,000 years to God. We have 6 days of creation, and we're running on 6,000 years of Torah down here. So it all lines up. And so from the time he emanated the first emanation to the giving of the Torah was 1,000 generations. All right? And 974 of those came and went. But I would beg to say that it was 984, because 10 generations after Noah, what did God do? He destroyed the earth. He destroyed everything on the earth. That's creating and destroying worlds, and he recreated creation at Noah. See? So, let's get back into Malchut here. On the other hand, Malchut represents the power that ultimately unifies all diverse powers of the Sefirot and holds everything together. Without Malchut, creation would remain incomplete. When we examine the difference between giving and receiving, male and female, we can see the paradigm that male is more diversified, where the paradigm of a woman is more unifying. This becomes evident in Sefer Yitzra'el. The 6 days of the work week are male, the 6 directions going outward, and on Shabbat, on the other hand, it's female. What do? We welcome in the Sabbath Queen, welcome in the Holy Spirit, or the Ruach, right? It's female. It's called, and then on Havdalah, the meal after Havdalah is called, in English, it's called the Queen's Escort. You're like a knight would escort a queen down through the city. That's the little meal after Havdalah. The Sabbath, on the other hand, is female. It's the center point that draws all 6 points together. So back to our Simpson. As we said, if the outer green one was Keter and the inner green one is Malchut, as God contracts, all the Malchuts come together and make creation, or what we're going to call earth. So then this is all female, and this is how he's getting everything into compression, only to have enough force to blow back out even beyond himself, which is the world to come. It's all about the Malchuts. Another important idea is the female principle is that all week long in our struggle to gain spirituality, we're on the male level. On Shabbat, though, the female level is on the female level because it can absorb the fruits that all you've done all week. There's a vessel to contain all your labor. Then it all comes together. A person could work very spiritually hard all week, but without Shabbat, there would be no way to receive it. This is because Shabbat is like the final hay of the Tetragrammaton. You're completing God when you're doing that. Completing His name. Making unification to His name. You know? So people try to get holy and holy and holy and holy, and if you're not doing Shabbat, you'll never get there. Because you're not making unification of the name. And what's the difference between a B'nai Noach and a Ger or Ger Toshav or Ger Tzedek or anything like that? Unification of the name. That's the secret. So, let's see. This is because Shabbat is like the final hay. It is the hand that receives. Without Shabbat, therefore, it's like cutting a person's hands off, preventing him from receiving anything. It is like working for something and never receiving it. This is why Shabbat is such an important part of Judaism. If you think of male and female biologically as male as the giver and female as the receiver and the nurturer, that gives much more than man ever initiated. Like the man gives over 1 million sperm cells, from which a woman selects only one. From that one single fertilized egg, however, she gives back a complete person. She receives. But as a part of the receiving, she ends up creating and building something more complex. Hence, the essence of femininity turns out to be much more complex. If masculinity is giving, femininity is receiving and completing. What is completing? The world of completion. Berea, Yetzirah.
Oh, I see it.
Asiya. Okay. That's right. Berea is the world of creation, and God created, and He formed man. Formed is Yetzirah, and He completed it, which is Asiya. Those are the 3 worlds that we live in. Well, we live in Asiya, but those are the 3 worlds that everything fell through. All right. Whereas masculinity is much more Yetzirah, which is something from something. Femininity is Malchut, paralleling Asiya, which is completion. And God completed the work which He had done in creating it, which you say every Shabbat, and He rested on the seventh day because He had completed the work which He had done in creating it. Asiya. He's all about right here. What is the very thing that God's thinking of right now? Earth and everything in it. It's in the center of His thought. And speaking about Chokmah and Bina, we mentioned in the verse, God founded the earth with wisdom, Chokmah, and established the heavens with Bina. Now, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense because He talks about earth before He talks about heaven. You see? Look at it. God founded the earth with wisdom and established the heavens with understanding, or Bina. All right? Kabbalists point out the feminine principle is earth. It's rooted in Chokmah, whereas the masculine derives from Bina. So, how do we say that in other Torah terms? Chokmah, this is father, mother. Father is the foundation of the daughter, and the mother crowns her son. So, where do we see that?
Bina?
King Solomon was crowned by his mother, and she ruled with him in the Holy of Holies because that's her space. And Hashem, Chokmah, the male, is worried about his daughter. What's his daughter's name?
It would be Rachel.
Rachel, the Shekhinah, which is nothing more. And Rachel is crying for her children.
Right.
Who is He? So, what was God thinking about when He created everything? Israel. The land of Israel. The people of Israel. It's all about Israel. That's the apple of His, that's literally called the apple of His eye. Why? Because the black part in your eye is the Malchut. That's the apple of your eye. It has no color of its own. Everybody, I don't care what color your eyes are, the very center of your eye is black. It has nothing of its own. And God, that's called the apple of His eye, which is Israel.
His firstborn.
Yeah. So, that's how that works. Now, if you'll go down on page 76, about 3/4 of the way, on the paragraph says, as we have said, the purpose of the Sefirot is to conceal God's light. It's really not concealing it, it's just restraining it. You know? Enough so that it can benefit those who have received it. In a sense, the Malchut kingship represents the ultimate concealment of the divine purpose for interacting with creation. In Malchut, God constricts Himself. He constricts Himself in order to give the kingdom over to man. He is essentially saying, I have created the world in such a way, and now it's all up to you, and I've given you the keys. Last paragraph. Rabbi Nachman is teaching us that Malchut kingship is not just a vessel that receives. As we have said, in order for Malchut to be perfect, it must also give what it receives. The receiving must transform into the giver. A great example of this is Noah's Ark. Never said it was a boat. It said it was an ark. If you know what an ark is, then you don't get trapped in the sugya of, well, how do you get all the animals on the boat? Well, what do you feed all the animals? You know?
They do the thing.
Well, yeah. What do you do with all the poop? You know? How do you feed them all? Well, why do you put a door in the side of a boat that water's coming? And how in the world, if evaporation works and you can only evaporate so much water in the sea, where'd all the water come from? We got 14,000 feet cliffs up here, mountains up here in Colorado. So we had to have 14,000 foot of water to go all around the earth. And people just go off from that. Oh, you just got to believe it by faith, brother. No, you don't. You got to know what an ark is. And then it's pretty simple. In terms of kingdom, for example, Malchut can be represented in the people's acceptance of the king's sovereignty. They are receiving all their needs from the king. And they're totally dependent on whatever the king provides. Second paragraph. If the king wants a subject to interact with him, however, then he must give them the ability to govern themselves. We call it free choice. Thus they become partners in directing the kingdom. They become givers as well as receivers. The concept of a king giving to his son a kingdom during his lifetime is paralleled by King David, who gave the throne to his son Solomon. As we have seen, King David represents the perfection of Malchut. David is a person taking Malchut, the kingdom, taking little by little authority that was given to him, bringing it into a full gestation and pregnancy with full-fledged power and giving it over to his son. Now, turn the page. The shattering of the vessels. How much time we got? 15 minutes. All right, we'll go about 15 minutes here. Chapter 10, 78. As we had discussed the 10 Sefirot of Atzilut, I better go over that. So, at first there were just 10 Sefirot, okay? But they were all bound together. Get here. On. Okay. Something bigger. All right, so here's what happens. Av, Sag, Ma, and Ben. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. So Ben's the Malchut, like we've been talking. Ma is the 6, Hokmah, Bina. 72 name of God, the very name of God that Moses used to split the Red Sea. He uses 72 name of God. 63 name, 45 name. What's the 45 name? Adam. Ben is 52, Adonai. So I always say Baruch atah Adonai. How many weeks are in a year? That's one. Now, these are the two Hays, the two girls, Rachel and Leah. As the light comes down into the world of Akudim through Sag and Ben, it's working on its. He's trying to create. So we use Elohim. Elohim is the creative name. It shatters. On what day does it shatter?
The 9th of Av.
The 9th of Av. Everything that has ever happened bad to Israel ever has always happened on the 9th of Av. Why?
It's a reiteration of that.
Because it's an iteration of never not. When did the first temple?
9th of Av.
When did the second temple?
9th of Av.
The 9th of Av. When do you think anything that's ever going to happen, Gog and Magog, is going to happen?
9th of Av.
It's probably going to be the 9th of Av. It's never not been the 9th of Av for 18 billion years. So, the 9th of Av is the shattering of the vessels. And Rosh Hashanah is the creation of Beradim. Took him 10 days. Right? We have 10 days to Yom Kippur. So, what happens? These are the 10 days to Yom Kippur. Till we get to the Malchut. Then it's about her. Then there's no eating, no drinking, no bathing, no sex, no nothing down here because it's all about her up there. This is when Adam and Eve were separated. When he took what did he take off of Adam? The Malchut. What's her name? Eve. All right, that's the rib. That's the surgery. He put Adam to sleep. And then he wakes him up, and they hug and kiss. These are the These are the 22 days of awe and ecstasy. Sefirot, Yom Kippur, the hugging and kissing. He builds her a house. It's called a sukkah. And they love each other very intimately. And then boom, Simchat Torah, brand new everything. The feast are traveling in it. But it had to go through the 9th of Av to get there. The shattering of the vessels. All right? So even our feast days that we have here are paralleling exactly what's been going on for never not in the mind of God. And so every time we do them, even every Shabbat that we do is repairing never not for God. That's the whole point of creation. There's so much power there, it's nuclear explosion. And we got to put the pieces of the puzzle back together. Now, when this happens right here in the world of Nekudim, then all of Berudim is the reconstitution. So if you look in your book here, if you don't have it, I'm going to jump a little bit to page 80. And we'll go back through and read that, but I want to jump to page 80. Because page 80 here is Genesis 36. And these are the kings that ruled in the land of Edom before any king reigned over the children of Israel. And I did a huge teaching on this 6 or 7 years ago and mapped out each one of these guys for each of the Sefirot. And it's amazing. All right? But I want you to look at the bottom. And he was succeeded by Hadar, who became king. Hadar's wife was Mehetabel. Hadar is Adam, and Mehetabel is Hava. Ravali says this is none other than Solomon and Bithia. All right? Which is just the iteration of the whole thing. Okay? So we can see that and that's the 8th king. So we have the 7 lower Sefirot shatter. When he makes the 8th, that's Berudim. He's already finished the world, the completion of it. In God's mind, we're just running the formula. It's already there. It's already done. The entire world of Berudim is already fixed. It's already banded back together.
Right. That's because it can contain the light.
So it can contain the light. So everybody worked on it. Joseph worked on it with Potiphar's wife. Moses worked on it with the Cushite woman. They wouldn't dare touch Timnah because that's Amalek. Amalek's Haman. We just went through that with Purim. Adam and Hava have been working on the rest and every iteration that has come out of it. From never, ever not. And we are just a result of the ones that are bringing up the rear, patching it up. And so this is the shattering of the vessels, and what happens with that is why the world looks the way it does today. Because Edom is Rome. Edom is all of Rome and every iteration that's ever come out of Rome. Europe and America. That's the Western society. It's the Western society that shatters. You look at it over history.
We're still using their calendar.
Well, all Rome, boom, this Alexander comes up, boom, France, boom, Italy, boom, Germany, boom. Look at it. Rise and falls, rise and falls. We're fixing to fall. It's a never not deal. We're on the verge of it.
It's a kink knot. Because
we never try to hold the light. We're gonna get the 10 Commandments off the courthouse. We're gonna get prayer out of school. We're gonna make sure ain't no God in America. And as soon as we do that, and as soon as we do that, we we're not going to contain the light. He's not going to give any.
The golden cup falls.
That's it. You look at China. That dynasty's been around for 2,000 years. Now they got their own deal, but they aren't the root of Adam. That's the thing. That's
which
the thing.
is Esau.
Which is Esau. Which is the whole issue that we have. Okay, so back to page 78. I'm not going to talk about. We've already talked about most of that page, but go to the middle of the page. The way in which Jacob succeeded in increasing the flock was obviously miraculous. Now, this in turn was based upon a prophetic vision in which the angel appeared to Jacob and said to him, "Raise your eyes, and you will see that the bucks manning the sheep are banded, spotted, and streaked." This is Genesis 31:12. As a result, Jacob learned that he was to meditate on these rods while in a very high state of consciousness, thereby projecting his thoughts on the sheep being conceived. All right. So, can we do that? So, if you get in a meditative, it's all code, get in a meditative prayer and start working on four-dimensionality, and you're doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. Now, you can say, I was counting Coke cans. I don't care what you call it. Mm-hmm. You can only say what it is here, because there's nothing that, how are you going to describe the world of Akudim? Mm-hmm. All right. Now, the Ari states that when Jacob saw the vision, he was looking at the very beginning of creation of the Sphero. That's what he was doing. Who's the Ari? The Ari is all the whole Kabbalistic math. He knows. He was looking at the creation of the Sphero, which means he was really back in Akudim, because that's the bound. So that's the stick that's the rod he was using. Mm-hmm. That's the bound. Mm-hmm. All right? To meditate on the spiritual dimension that underlies the physical reality. So he was looking at physical reality, but he was looking at the spirituality of the physicality, which nobody hardly does anymore. They just see it as cheap. He was saying, okay, maybe I reconnected. Thereby influencing the genetic structure of the sheep. So he was actually changing the genetics. Why? Because he was working on the genetic code. Guy's a scientist. He was in the laboratory of the mind of God. And envisioning the three major stages of evolution of the Sphero. By meditating on the latter, he succeeded in changing the former. He was changing 974 worlds. That's the depth that Jacob was working on. What Jacob saw was that the Sphero were first created. They existed as a paradoxical 10 lights within one vessel, the world of the banded, Akudim. They were all the Sphero that are completely undifferentiated and bound together. The lights were divided into 10 distinct entities in the state of Nekudim, of spots and points. This state is where the primitive Sphero could receive God light, and thus they were called vessels. But they could not interact or give anything to each other. The vessels could not communicate. Instead, the light overwhelmed them and they shattered. This is known as the breaking of the vessels. After being shattered, the vessels were then rectified and rebuilt. This is the world of Berudim, or as they say, Berudim, but we call it Berudim. Berudim, where the Sphero were connected as a Partsufim. Partsufim. Archetypes, personas, love, mercy, strength, empathy. See? In other words, God now has a personality. He can actually interact as judge, as savior. You see? And God was angry. He And he can have emotion. You know? This is what he's doing. These are his personas, personifications. He can act as father. He can act as mother. He can act as deliverer. He can be the death angel. He can send the death angel. He can do whatever he can now interact, and it can communicate with itself without being just overbearing light. This is called partsufing. It has parts. Okay? This is the world of Beradim, where it can be constructed into partsufing. Second to the last paragraph. As we saw in the discussion of the Sphirot, any creative act requires all 10 Sphirots acting in unison. In essence, all the Sphirot are vessels of Keter. In other words, Keter is feeding them all. They constitute the unified system through which light of Keter manifests itself. When we go up a level, however, we see the Sphirot are all they originating one single vessel. This is the level of Akudim. So, the level of Akudim comes from Adam Kadmon. So we have Adam Kadmon, and then the Adam of Berudim is Adam Harishon, is the Adam in the garden. Now, when it falls out and it's contaminated with the fall, it's Adam Blia'al. So there's 3 Adams. A pre, a present, and a post, we'll call it. All right? So the serpent, the Nakash, is basically Adam Blia'al, the contaminated Adam.
So you when you say post, you mean post-fall?
Post-fall, yeah, post-fall. Yeah, exactly. All right, this is in preparation for the next stage in the process that leads to the unity and similarity to diffuse and dissimilarities. The 10 in 1 situation is now forcibly dissolved. Each Sphirot manifest independently, and the next stage is Nekudim. We'll wrap it up right here. We'll just wrap it up right there. Top of page 80. It's a good place to start. Real quick, let's read the first paragraph. It is here that the Sphirot appear in 10 distinct concepts. They are called Nekudim. Points because they are primitive state. They are totally disconnected. The force to diffuse is so great that the Sphirots are now called the universe of Tohu and chaos. Tohu and chaos. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was astonishingly empty, and darkness upon the face of the deep. Which one of those words is tohu? I think tohu is. I think tohu is astonishingly empty. Tohu, bohu. There's four words there. Tohu and bohu. But anyway, that's now we're finally at Genesis chapter 1. See? Can you find it, Russell? Which one?
I'm having trouble finding the page.
Genesis 1:1.
Let's.
It's either
I'll look for it.
It's tohu, bohu.
Tohu, I think it's astonishingly empty.
That's
And then
the bohu is darkness, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Astonishingly empty. What now?
Chaos.
Chaos. That's right.
It's chaos.
Chaos is tohu. So we just got there. So we will start with tohu next week. So we finally got into the book of Genesis. So far. All right. So the Torah is amazing. Sages are amazing. And next week, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a little Talmud piece. It's real short. But I'm gonna do a Talmud piece next week. It's really cool. Show you how the Talmud, you know, I love doing Talmud anyway. So we're gonna do that, and maybe we'll do some more of this. But I'll get really back rolling next week. Tour's amazing. Sages are amazing. See you next week.
It already went off.
Did it? I thought I heard it beep.